Daf Mem Vav Amud Beis, 6 lines from the top. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Ma'aser Hashemen Shebener Shebekara also. The leftover oil that's in the nair or in a bowl, if the nair was lit on Shabbos, if the flame was burning, then even after it's extinguished, the oil that remains in the container is also muksa. Rav Shimon matir. Rav Shimon, who's mekel and muksa, Rav Shimon is matir. So Rav Shimon, as we said before, he does not hold of migdasoy lebein hashmashos, iskasoy lekula yoyma, and even though when it was lit, it could not be carried, it was also betiltul. Once the flame is extinguished, the leftover oil is mutter. Alma Rav Shimon, Leslie muksa. So Rav Shimon is mekel with muksa. Rimino asku stira. Rabbi Shimon Omer, kol she'ein mumun nikir me'er yontav ein ze min hamuchan. In the case of a bechor cannot be shechted outside of Yerushalayim. A bechor has to, if it doesn't have a mum, you have to makrav it for a korban. It has to be brought as a korban. If it has a mum kavua, which is established by a mumcha, that it's a permanent blemish, then it's like, in many ways, like basar chulin, and it can be shechted outside of Yerushalayim. Yondan yontiv, an animal can be shechted. It's l'tzarech ha'echol nefesh. Now, if a bechor, if it developed a permanent mum on yontiv, so theoretically, it could be now shechted and used for yontiv. But there are two issues involved. Number one is the bechor has to be examined by a mumcha, by an expert, and that itself is also midrabanan. That's like being done a din, which is also midrabanan. Number two is that since on the onset of yontiv, if the bechor still did not have a mum, was still considered a tomim, then at that point there's no anticipation that it can be used. So there's a muksa dikashayla, because on the onset of yontiv, this status of the animal as it is now cannot be used for yontiv because it doesn't have a mum. So you cannot now shecht it. Now even if it develops a mum on yontiv, kol she'ein a mum on nikir, if the mum is not nikir erev yontiv, it was not recognizable before yontiv, ein ze min hamuchan, it's muksa, and this is the shita of Rav Shimon. So we're saying by the Ma'aser Hashemen Shebener that Rav Shimon leslie muksa, yet over here we see that he holds of muksa, and he holds that the bechor is muksa. From the Gemara Hachash. When Rav Shimon says the Ma'aser Hashemen Shebener is mutter, as we learned before, we're talking specifically where a nair. It's not talking about a large container of oil, a menorah, or a menorah that would normally burn the entire day. We're talking about a nair, a small receptacle, that the anticipation is that sometime during the Shabbos the flame will go out, it'll be extinguished. So a person is mitzapi, he's Eishem mitzapi, he anticipates that in the normal course of events the flame will go out and he'll be able to use the oil. So Rav Shimon holds it's not muksa because he anticipates that he'll be using this. But adam Eishem mitzapi masa yipo by mum. Here, does a person sit and wait in anticipation that his animal is going to develop a mum? Who says it ever will? Firstly, who says that it will develop a mum? So he's not anticipating that there will be. And even if you say that there will be a mum, who said it'll be a permanent blemish? It's only mutter to shecht if it's a permanent blemish. And if you're going to say that it's a mum kavu, he still has to be able to have a chacham who will paskin on it and say that it's a permanent blemish. It can't be shechted unless the chacham paskins and declares that it's a mum kavua. Now, who says he'll find a chacham to do that? It's even also to do it on yontiv. It's also to paskin on the mum. So, because of all of these issues. Therefore, Rav Shimon says it's muksa. Now, as the Rishonim speak out, we really don't need all of these. The Gemara is just saying this, l'rav the milsa, that you have all of these far-fetched things by the case of Bechor. But really, even if you didn't have all of them, you would still say it's muksa. And as the Ritva explains, he says the fundamental difference is between the two cases is that by the ner, there's an anticipation that he will be able to use the Moiser Shemesh Bener. And he's not dependent on anybody else. Over here, since it's not in his hands, the point is really that it's not in his hands, and it's not inevitable, and it's not even likely that it will occur on its own. Therefore, Shimon is Maida that it's Muksa. A husband can be mefer his wife's nedarim Shabbos, and one can also go to a chacham and to be mater neder, provided that these nedarim are for the purpose of Shabbos. For instance, if the woman made a neder that food is also to her, it's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos, the husband can be mefer the neder. Similarly, a person who said he asked food on him, or wine, or etc., or challah, then he can go to the chacham to be matir the neder. So v'amai? Well, why isn't this similar to the case of the bechor? Why isn't this like the case of the bechor? You have to rely on someone else to be made for matir the neder. In the case of the wife, who said that her husband is going to agree to be made for the neder? So isn't she dependent on an outside party and a third party to be made to make this mutter for her? So why shouldn't it be muksa? More answers now. There's a full anticipation that it will happen because a woman makes a neder. She makes a neder only if her husband agrees to it. Meaning, there's an anticipation that if the husband doesn't agree to it, there will be no issue over here. There'll be no conflict, and the husband and woman, the husband and wife, they both are under understanding. She made the neder, but only wants it if the husband wants it. So there's a full anticipation that when the husband hears about it, he will automatically be made for the neder because it was only made with his consent to begin with. So therefore, it's not really dependent on another third party because it's really only made, the neder was only made to begin with if he wants it, and therefore there's no issue, there's no sichsuch, and there's no conflict over here, and therefore the full anticipation is that he will be made for the neder. What about the case where we say that you can be mater a neder for the purpose of Shabbos? Now here's not a husband and wife. Why is that mutter? Why don't we say that it's muksa? Even if you're saying be mater is mutter because it's a purpose of Shabbos, and there's no isra of dana din. But why isn't it muksa? More answers. Over there, you don't necessarily need a chacham to be mater the neder. You can rely on three ordinary people, average people. So therefore, there's a full anticipation that if the neder, he can be mater the neder. He'll find someone to be mater the neder, either a chacham or three hadyotis, but there's a full anticipation that the neder, he could be mater the neder. So it's not really considered that he's dependent on a third party, and that may or may not happen. But over here by the bechor, who says that he'll get a chacham, find a chacham, and a chacham will even agree to do something which is also, because to be declared the paskin on the mum, for a chacham to paskin on the mum bechor is also on Shabbos. So therefore, by here it's muksum. So that's the chilik between the two cases, between the case of the Moiser Shemesh Bener and the case of the bechor on Yom Tov. Ramelei Baila Rav Yosef, he asked the Kasha Sir Rav Yosef, Mi Amar Rav Shimon Kosam Muter L'Taltala. Rav Shimon said, if the nair, once the flame is extinguished, the leftover oil is muter, you can be metaltaled. But Kovsi in like Kovsaloi, but it's only when the flame went out. But if it has not gone out while it's burning, you cannot carry the nair. My taima dilma bahari denakidla kavsa. Why is that? Because we're afraid while he's carrying it, it might go out. So it's only after the nair, after the flame has been extinguished, can he carry this. But Rosh Shimon is maida that while it's burning, he cannot. So why is that? Apparently, that is because well, in the process of carrying it, he might extinguish the flame, and that's kiboy. And that potentially could be a malach. What's the problem? But we know the sheet of Rav Shimon is davar shein miskaven is muter. So what's the problem? Even if it does go out, even if the flame does go out, that's not his intent. So why should it be also to carry it because it might go out? It's not his intent. If it does go out, it's the davar shein miskaven. Rav Shimon says it's muter. Tanya Rav Shimon noimer geir adam kisei mite v'safsal lovad shel iskaven laseis charetz. Rav Shimon says a person can drag a bench, a chair, a stool, as so long as he's dragging it, even if he's dragging it on an earthen floor, even though it might make a furrow and might make a charetz, which potentially could be boina or could be chayrish in a field, it's mutter so long as he does not intend to make that charetz. And as we've spoken out before, the Gemara has mentioned that so long as it's not a psik ration, as long as it's not inevitable, and that's not his intent, he can drag the bench, even though it might make a charetz, it might make a furrow, it's still mutter to drag it, because even if it does, that's not his intent. And davar shein miskaven is mutter according to Rosh Shimon. So what's the difference over here? Over here as well, why do we say he cannot carry the burning flame, the candle, the nair? Because the flame might go out. Even if it does, it's a davar shein miskaven. From the Gemara, Kol heicha dechi mechaven ikisur d'araisa ki lo mechaven gazer of shim mirabban. The Gemara says like this: Kol heicha, where he would be mechaven, there's an isur d'araisa. So when he's not mechaven, then Rosh Shimon is moida that we're geyser. We're geyser. It's exer midrabanan. Kol heicha dechi mechaven iki through the rabbanan. But in a case where even if he is mechaven, there's only an isser d'Rabbanan, there's no isser d'Oraisa, ki lo mechaven shor Rav Shimon l'charchila. In that case, he says it's muter even l'charchila. So in the case of the bench, dragging the bench or the chair, even if he makes a charitz, now making a charitz with intent could be an isser d'oraisa. But if he drags it, he's doing it not in the normal way. He's doing it in a way where he's doing it kalach hayad. Then this is not the derech. Now the isser d'oraisa is only if he does it in the normal fashion. So Gemara at this point is saying that by the charitz, yes, Rav Shimon says it's muter, and it's muter, and even if he makes a charitz, it's a davar shein miskaven. And over there, he's not even geyser midrabanan. Why? Because even if he would be mechaven, this will only be midrabanan because he's doing it not in the normal way. It's shloi kedarka. The normal way of making charitz is by digging, and he's not digging. By the case of the nair, if he would carry the nair, and it would go out in the process of carrying it, that would be kiboy, that would be extinguishing the flame in the normal way. So it could potentially be an isser d'oraisa. So over there, at this point, the Gemara is saying, in such a case, even though it's a davar shein miskaven, but if he would be mechaven, it would be a d'oraisa. Therefore, the geyser even midrabanan. As Taisus points out, now, really, by normal case of kiboy, it's not a d'oraisa in any event, because normally that's considered a malacha she'eina tzricha legufa. The case of kiboy d'oraisa is only if he intends to extinguish the flame for the purposes of creating a coal. And that's not the average case of kibui, of when he carries a nair and the flame goes out. That's not the typical case. So at this point, the Gemara's teretz would be that this is l'chera shtikol doichik, but it's only a havamina. The Gemara at this point would be saying that by the case of kibui, there could potentially be a deraisa. Now, even though in the normal case it would not be a deraisa because of malach shein tzrich lagufa, but there could potentially be a deraisa if he is intending to create a coal, and then by carrying it, the flame goes out. That would be a deraisa. But in the case of dragging the bench, there wouldn't be a deraisa anyway because it's shaloi kedarka. Masav Rava says no. You cannot say this chilik. You cannot say that Rav Shimon is only a matar she'ena savar she'ena meskaven only if where he would be mechaven it's a deraisa, not a derabbanan. No, you can't say that because we learn marchik sus, marchik kedarkan, the people who sell clothing, and if this clothing has kelayim, they can sell it in the normal way. He can sell it in a normal way, and meaning, and he can wear it and show it and model it, he can show it, as long as he doesn't have kavana for the hana, for the benefit of the beged, not in the winter from the rain, and not in the sun, in the summer from the sun. But at snuim, but the ones who are very careful in mitzvahs, that snuim mafshilim b'makal achareim. They take a stick and they have it suspended, hanging on a stick or a hanger in back of them, so not to have any shaila about getting hana from kilayim, about wearing kilayim. But meker din, the people, the merchants, could wear the clothing even though they have kilayim. Now over here, if they would be mechaven for the hanos levisha to get benefit from the clothing, if they would, then isur deraisa. There would be an isur deraisa, and kiloi mechaven shor Rav Shimon lecharchila, and nevertheless Rav Shimon says that lecharchila they could, so long as they're not mechaven lecharchila, they could wear it. So you see that even where a person would have kavana, there would be an isur deraisa. Nevertheless, Rav Shimon says it's still mutter so long as he does not have kavana. So that cannot be the chiluk between the ner and the ger adam kisei and the mitav safsal. That cannot be the chiluk. It doesn't make a difference whether if he would have kavana it's an isur deraisa or isur derabbanan. So what is the chiluk? Ela amarava hanach lener shem repsila. He said no. Don't bring in that case. Put that to a side. That's different. The reason why it cannot be carried is not like we suggested earlier, the Havamina of the Gemara, that it's because the flame might go out. No, that's not the reason. Because even if the flame does go out, even if there is a kivui, it's a Dorish and Miskavan, which according to Rav Shimon is mutter. What's the issue over here? Why cannot he be metaltled while it's burning? Because he cannot move the flame. The flame itself is burning. He cannot move the flame. And he cannot remove the oil from the nair, because that would be kibui. So therefore, the nair itself, the container itself, is a bosis ledovar ha'asr. It is holding, it's now the base, it's a bosis for a dover which itself is asr. So then it becomes muksa. So long as the flame is burning, then it would be considered a bosis, a dover la'asr. So therefore the nair itself cannot be carried. You can't even carry the nair itself, not because he might extinguish it, because it's muksa, because it's a bosis l'davar aser. But once the flame has been extinguished, then Rav Shimon says we don't say miga diskat soil kula yoima iskat soil kula diskat soil bein shmarsh is kula yoima. We don't say just because it was muksa at the onset of Shabbos, it's muksa for the whole Shabbos. Once the flame has been extinguished, then it's mutter. Then it is mutter. What about the miga diskat soil that muksa mitzvosai? Why don't we say that Rav Shimon is maida by Muksa, if something is huksa lemitzvosai, Rav Shimon is also mited to that case. Why isn't that a reason to say that it's muksa? Why do we have to come on to bosses? Why isn't that a reason to say it's muksa? We know that Rav Shimon he's in many cases of muksa, he's mekel, but in the case of huksa lemitzvosai, he is machmer over there. They're trying to speak out because carrying the nair does not negate, does not take away from the mitzvah. When we say something is huksul mitzvosai, and therefore it's muksa, it means that it cannot be used in a way, it cannot be used in a manner which will now negate it and not allow it to be used for the mitzvah. But as long as it can continue to be used for the mitzvah, then that does not contradict, that does not come into conflict with huksul mitzvosai. But over here, since the flame is burning, and it's also the flame and the oil is also to remove them, they become a bosses for the nair, and therefore it's muksa.